It is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you're tuned in to Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. But this is ChipChat. Welcome to ChipChat, everybody. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told him, buddy. Wow.
Yeah. The new Tez quote of the week: "Don't tempt the news cycle."
Just don't tempt it, man. You do a lot of planning for this show. You're the only one who works around here, right? And again, another week where you just, in a nice, neat box for us to work in. And I was happy because I was like, you know what? Very clear, concise, show. We can just knock that out. We get out here kind of early and, relatively early. And as you sent what you sent, I did send to you immediately. I was like, I don't know. Don't tempt this news cycle. This news cycle always has something up its sleeve. And we thought it was just them invading the Russian drones invading the Polish airspace. That was the first thing.
I was like, oh no. And then I was like, well, we know what we're talking about. And then he's like, it's only Wednesday. And I was like, oh.
Only Wednesday.
Yeah. So I'm gonna not talk to Tez during the week.
Yeah.
Because it's apparently like a curse.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Doesn't help for the preparation of the show, because maybe the best preparation is not to prepare, to just attack the topics.
We can't both do that.
No, we both
That's
can't.
It's
not. The show wouldn't work. Only one person could do that.
Yeah. You have so much natural talent. You can just wing it every time.
Wing it every time.
All right. So welcome to a special edition of ChipChat, aka Resistance Radio. Today is, of course, 9/11. So we do want to take a moment to think about the victims of that horrible attack on our country. It was 24 years ago, an attack that defines an era, in that there was a time before and then there's a time after.
It's one of those events, one of those. Yeah.
And it shaped everyone our age, our lives in ways that we probably really haven't begun to understand. And God bless the therapists who are all going to be there with us, to help sort this out.
It was almost the start of a wave of trauma for a certain generation. I mean, you could weave in the 2000 election, because that's kind of whoa, what? But
that kind of goes right along with it.
You could weave in it, and maybe you thought of there Elian Gonzalez before that, but no, with 9/11 specifically, it's okay, you have that, obviously a war in Afghanistan, and that goes into obviously Iraq, and then I think even from that, even locally here, you get anthrax, and then you get the sniper.
Yeah, it's not just that. We have the Patriot Act and the PSA and all of this other stuff. The massive expansion of government surveillance.
Yes. The
reorganization of the federal government. Speaking of locally, the way that deeply impacted us. 9/11 is there is a time before. My life is divided up into the time before my bar mitzvah, this fuzzy time between my bar mitzvah and 9/11 where I was a teenager, and then 9/11 happens as I'm graduating high school, entering adulthood, and all of a sudden all my friends are shipped off overseas to go fight in a war.
Right.
It is a bad time. It's a tense time. I never really addressed it or processed this at all. It's like I immediately stored it as a textbook article and I still
you didn't live it. You didn't live it almost.
It never happened to me. Yeah. It was just a historical event. I have never sat down and thought about how 9/11 felt to me at all. I've never done that.
You never have been. Wow. Well, that interesting.
I just marched right through it and just carried on. I haven't done. My wife, is from New York. She talks about seeing, she was at school. She was in college on Staten Island, and she talks about seeing the smoke from the trade centers. You know, I could see the smoke from the Pentagon. Right. And beyond sort of like me occasionally reminding her that this happened to us here in Washington too, because so much of the way 9/11 is talked about is about New York and not about Washington. But apart from that, I don't know that she and I have ever really talked about this in a deep way. And that's probably something I ought to do. But
yeah, because I have the exact opposite. Like, I've almost talked about 9/11 ad nauseum to the point where it's like it doesn't. It always have the sting, but it's almost like being, the further you get away from these things, they start to become more of the textbook piece that you're talking about. But like,
I just immediately skipped to that. I think honestly, if you asked me now, like what I thought, how 9/11 felt, my mind immediately jumps to the Patriot Act, and it jumps to the reaction to 9/11, not the actual act of it. I never processed that. I definitely need to.
I'll never be able, because you talk about it jumps to, I'll never be able to ever erase from my mind the people jumping out the window that day, or choosing that option. And for me, and I'm, what is that? I'm in, if you're graduating, I'm 8th grade, because I'm not in high school yet. Yeah, no, I mean, and I remember like going home, beautiful day, like exactly, just like I can see that day. I can remember like walking through the school home, like, why is everybody inside the library watching TV right now? And like before, I can envision, I can see or hear the principal going over like the PA system. All of that, I can. All of that stuff is like bookmarked, and it's like, oh.
I can remember all of that stuff happening very vividly.
Yeah.
I can remember at that time I slept with the radio on, with WTOP on, because that's where the ball games used to be, and I would fall asleep, listening to the Orioles games. And I had just come back from my exile in Connecticut, and I was sleeping at my parents' house. I hadn't started living in student housing yet with school, and and I woke up to the radio telling me that this stuff was happening, and confused. And my dad was downtown at work, and
my mom worked in Pentagon City at the time.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just like, oh God, like, all right, what? Like, hold on. Where did it strike? Hold on.
But I never talked with my parents about this. I never addressed
you never had that. Like, wow, yeah. I think it was
I did.
Yeah.
Brian talked to my parents about it. That's good of you, Brian.
Well, the thing is, I talked to him after the towers came down. I had to talk because my parents were both overseas at the time. So it was kind of really during that day, it was kind of extremely difficult to try to get a call out because everybody was
the circuits were way overloaded.
Phone, doing something, trying to contact every known loved one around the globe. And once I was able to get through at least to my mom to make sure she was okay and stuff like that, and all that stuff. So, and then I was able to get my dad a couple hours later. So it's that time frame was, as everyone knows, was chaotic. But I felt like even the aftermath of everything, now we're in 24 years later, I still think about certain things that happened and around that time, because I felt like, things kind of changed, especially in America and sadly right now, I would say for the worse.
I don't know if this is maybe a strength or trauma response, but now that you guys are mentioning this, I'm kind of thinking about this, that I basically switched off feeling major things. Like, I feel things for me that are individual, but I stopped feeling like the big things.
Things.
And from that point on, and I became a process operator, and I am now still that. And I've been that the entire time.
I don't even, then you're saying that you don't like national events, you don't feel some of these. And I don't think that's true. Is that what you're saying?
I feel them, but I feel them cognitively. I don't feel them viscerally. I feel them because I know what the thing to do is, but I'm operating a solution all the time. I think I might be still stuck. I might be doing that since then. I don't know that I ever stopped doing that. Yeah, like, okay, this thing happened. What do we do next? It's like, when you're at work and like something major happens and I don't know if you can do this, but I do this. I think most people who do like, some sort of facilities or like critical infrastructure, IT kind of thing, they're like, don't care. What's the problem? How do we fix it? Like you stop caring about people and their feelings and all of that stuff, and you just work the problem.
That is not necessarily my first go-to for the fact that I worked in retail for a long time, and the idea of you having to assuage the customer at the point and to like, that piece I think is critical because whatever is happening, like, right, like let's just say it's a computer, like it's impacting them from getting something done. And there is a feeling of frustration, not at you necessarily, but at like the technology. And maybe, you know what this is? Like it's called empathy.
Well, it's not that I don't have that.
I don't know.
I learned from a recently deceased individual that that's a useless thing to have, but
that's not. Jesus Christ, I don't know.
You know where this show is going. Don't even.
Right.
I don't know that I like. It's not that I'm not empathic or sympathetic to like the person who is impacted by the thing, but I am so always
oriented. You want to go straight to the.
I just want to fix the problem, and I might, without really thinking about it, maybe I've been just in a heightened state of like what how like in Apollo 13 where they're like work the problem, people. Right. Like it's that's how I think about everything all the time. Everything I do, even like folding laundry, is like, all right, what's the problem? How do we solve it? Like there's no. Yeah, we might have hit something. You know what? Let's make sure that I can play this back for my therapist next.
Right, exactly. Just this.
We might have hit something.
First 15 minutes of the show. Well,
All right, on to the rest of this.
We're not talking to the whole internet right now. It's just me and you, baby. Me, you, and Brian. It's just us.
I mean, that's kind of how this show works, isn't it?
Nominally, it is that.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the rest of it. So this has been an incredible news week. Obviously, we intended to stick to a few larger topics that would have some smaller details kind of inside of them, but Tez cursed us with his deft predictions of the news cycle. So
wave my magic wand, and I'm like, more news, more bad.
So
news.
We were confronted with another huge story, which is a developing story. We want to like really heavily emphasize that there's a lot of stuff that's unknown. We're not going to talk about or make any speculative statements about any of that. No. We might talk about kind of like what we're seeing in the speculation because of where that itself is a problem. The speculation is a problem. But in case you've been living under a rock, you probably know by now that Charlie Kirk has been shot and killed. He's, of course, the co-founder of Turning Point USA. He is known for his utterly repugnant, racist, misogynistic, and violent, I don't want to call it ideology, maybe, belief structure, whatever it is. He is violence incarnate, except he's not incarnate anymore because he got shot and he's dead. So on the same day that a school shooting took the lives of several children, there were a bunch of people who were injured. But Charlie Kirk, of course, got a lot of news coverage.
I didn't hear about the school shooting.
You didn't hear about the school shooting because Charlie Kirk stuff went wall to wall.
I didn't hear about that.
That's right. Of course you didn't. So we'll be covering that here too, of course. So we do need to talk about it. Hopefully we're going to add some context. We also want to cover we would want to cover all the other shootings that happened on the same day, but it's only a 3-hour show and we simply don't have the time for that. So, and this is what the gun lobby calls freedom, is that a story about a high profile individual getting shot is broken into for now. We're moving on to another coverage of yet another shooting happening in the same place or in the same time zone or whatever. So, freedom, Hooray. We wrote the show Wednesday night before any more details really have come out. There have been a few more details since then, so we will add those to what we're talking about. But, that's the big flashing red light in what we're going to talk about. We were planning, we're going to do headlines because those are kind of funny, and we did write some of those. But then we'll be right back to the misery. So we want to discuss Gaza, which that somehow got worse. If you could have guessed that there was a way to make that fucking thing worse, don't worry, Benjamin Netanyahu found that thing. So, hooray. And then, in case you're feeling happy for some reason, then we're going to talk about the widening conflict in Ukraine. So
bring it back down.
Yeah,
bring you back down. Well, every time you think you can rise above the misery, we will bring you back down here.
That's right. Our job is to ruin your week by telling you just the stuff that happened. This is nominally a comedy show, by the way.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
We haven't laughed in 4 years.
That's not true. We laugh.
No, we laugh, but there's never been a time I'm trying to think the last slow period of the last 3 years, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that we might have had a week or two where we
maybe a week or two, and
but nah.
Almost the end of the Biden administration. Maybe there was a couple weeks, not like at the end, but like in the last year, maybe there was something. I don't think. Right? I don't know. There hasn't.
I don't know. We'll send Brian back into the archives. We're due for a clip show sometime pretty soon anyway, so maybe he'll find one of those. So it's not going to be a fun show. I don't know how else to we're gonna make jokes. They're not going to be nice. They're going to be nihilistic. Maybe they're going to be us processing the sheer agony of existing on this plane with the rest of these things that are happening. But that's how we're going to handle it. I don't know a better way to handle it, to be honest.
You laugh to keep from crying, but you might not laugh because this might not be funny.
Right. Gilbert Gottfried famously said, if tragedy plus time equals comedy, why wait? And,
it's true words.
Sometimes he was right, while he was yelling. He didn't say it that quietly.
Right, of course.
He was screaming it when he said it because he's Gilbert Gottfried. But, yeah. So do you have a word? Oh, we just wanted to say we're live on Rip Radio Network back.
Wow.
Home. So we're live on there right now. If you're watching on Rip Radio Network, we are there. Hi.
Someone who's been watching since we've been off is like, what is this?
Yeah, well, our old fans who are just tuned in, and they're like, hey, these guys are back. And they're gonna be like, Larry looks a little different,
They've aged a bit.
Yeah. Well,
usually someone's like, they haven't aged a bit. No, they've aged a bit.
When did we last leave Ripped Radio? Well, I guess we were Ripped Radio.
I was on. Yeah.
You've been here while we were Ripped Radio, but
I've missed enough Rippies.
Yeah, right. Ha! That I've hosted and or presented or put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
No, I mean, do I have a word? Of course I have a word.
Okay.
Yeah, of course I have a word. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got I got a word.
All right.
Okay. So sit back, grab some
guns.
It's Hamilton time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, ChipChat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Freedom.
Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping, y'all?
All right, now it's time for some headlines. This is the intentionally funny part of the show where we read you headlines from this week's news. Do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah, I'll take the first one.
I always ask you that. You always say yes. I don't know why.
No, I don't always say yes. Sometimes I let you go first.
Sometimes you count ahead. Yeah.
I do. It depends if I'm trying to the things I want to pluck out. There's a few in there I wanted to pluck out, but it didn't matter because whatever. All right, continuing on. To prove that Washington D.C. was now safe after his crime emergency, Donald Trump went out to dinner at a local steakhouse where they carefully slipped in some KFC.
That's right. Locals at the restaurant heckled the president and his group, which included Lil Marco and an Ohio man described as a couch fucker.
Reportedly, the hecklers and press asked Trump about the Epstein books with his signature, which shocked the orange goon because he had forgotten that he knew how to write.
Also, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him from today, but I think maybe he had a stroke. So... just keep an eye on that one. One side of his face doesn't seem to know what the other side of his face is doing. That's not a headline. That's just a thing I noticed.
All right, that's our new segment. That's just a thing I noticed.
Just a thing I noticed. Yeah. Okay. Trump is suffering from a condition called venous insufficiency, which should not be confused with his other condition, cerebral insufficiency.
Okay.
I nearly fucked that one up.
Yeah, that's all right. You got through. Russian drones flew over Polish airspace and NATO members shot them all down. Finally answering the question, how many Polacks does it take to shoot down a Russian drone attack? About F-16 of them.
Nice. Not doing Polak jokes anymore, Tez. That's really inconsiderate.
Yo, that's the one. I was trying to avoid that one, and I think I messed up my count.
Hilarious.
I have an off-air thing. I'll say something about that. That's insane. Just remind me of something. Oh my god. All
right. FIFA announced that they would start selling tickets to the 2026 World Cup, which will be held in North America and feature 48 teams to start the group stage. No word yet on prices, but foreign visitors will be required to buy deportation insurance.
How much does deportation insurance cost you?
I don't know, but it comes on ice.
Oh God, that's good. Oh God, that's good. I'm not gonna let that one just sit there for that.
Yeah.
In other sports news, the NFL season's kicked off with some exciting games. Not one tonight. I don't like what's going on my TV.
No, I don't like what's going on.
Don't like what's going on at all. And due to our remote format, no studio doors were harmed in the process.
Yes.
But that is inside baseball there.
That is a very inside Chip Chat joke, but it is very, very funny.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Well, we can antagonize Brian about it later.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers and Joey Flacco both started for their respective teams, making the first time in NFL history that two starting quarterbacks could also claim Medicare.
Before the Senate panel to defend his existence, there is tough questions from senators after the health department issued new guidelines to ban Geritol.
Okay. Also read it in a reasonable place. I feel bad because every time I make fun of him the way he talks, I'm reminded that Diane Rehm has the same condition.
Yeah,
okay, I would never tolerate anybody making fun of her.
But again, no one's making fun. I might as I
You're
tell
just doing the impression.
I tell my Diane story, which is a great one. Oh dear, thank you. I see the same voice, so I feel equal opportunity.
That's fair.
RFK Jr. went before the Senate panel to defend his existence and face tough questions from senators after the health department issued new guidelines to ban Geritol.
Right. That's a joke that senators are old. That's what that joke is. Okay. Just wanted to be clear about that. RFK went on to claim that Tylenol causes autism, but that the heroin he injected for 15 years was fine.
Right. Of course it's fine. Or refuse to answer any questions.
Meanwhile, the actual staff at HHS is down to RFK's dealer and the worm.
All right. No more fake RFK. That was my stick the whole Sunday, and everybody around me hated me. They
were really tired of it. After
everybody was ready to kill me because I went for like 6 hours with that straight. It was so bad. Like from the Commanders game, after the Commanders game on, I was just RFK. The BLS released new jobs data showing that the U.S. created only 22,000 jobs in the month of August, or roughly the number of people Trump needs to help him cheat at golf.
The Labor Department also revised down the total number of jobs created in the previous few months and even the year prior, fueling speculations of an economic downturn. In response, Trump promised higher penguin tariffs.
Yeah, gotta tax them. Tax the birds.
Those goddamn penguins.
All right. In other government news, the DOD did try renaming itself as the Department of War, we talked about last week, but because of a policy set forth by Pete Hegseth, it still has to use the bathrooms labeled Defense Department. The Defense Department. Is this? I didn't catch that story. Is this based on like him trying to make sure there's no like all gender bathrooms? And
you can't be trans and be in the military anymore. So going by your preferred name as opposed to the one that's on your founding documents,
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
it's funny that the Department of War can just change its name. And
be whoever it wants to be.
Yeah, and live its life as the Department of War, not the Department of Defense, the way it was created by Congress.
Yeah.
Yep. Trump threatened to use the Department of War against Chicago after a band of Vikings proved that Chicago is somewhat defenseless.
That is good. Even though it's not looking good for us. Thursday.
Whatever.
I know, but it's good. That was a good joke.
It's a good joke.
Really good joke.
Yeah.
And finally, authorities in Australia have approved a chlamydia vaccine for koalas, which made JD Vance really excited for some reason.
Yes.
That's the headlines.
All right. I hope you enjoyed it. That's the only funny part of the show. So if it was funny, I thought it was funny. Nominally. Yeah. This is a comedy show. All right. We're going to take a break, which this is often the time when Brian does things to us. So, you never know. But, if we do feature Alex Jones tonight, just when the thing happened to Charlie Kirk, one of the things the internet said is, quick, do Alex Jones next. So I just want to be like, in case we didn't cause that, we didn't have anything to do with that.
We've never put, for I think whatever, we didn't cause any of that. We've never mentioned that person's name on this show that I can ever recall.
Yeah,
like maybe
we didn't cause, no. And we're on, like, you can see us. Like, this is live. So, you know where we're at.
Yeah.
So, we're all going to be good. So, yeah, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with some sad things to talk about. You're listening to ChipChat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
All I could ever do is hate this. The really most American. I wish that I could care again. I am crying, why me? I feel like Nancy Kerrigan. Soldiers on my streets is really getting bleak. The occupation is intense, oppressive to the meek, with criminality on the rise. When all we see is eyes of the masked assailants contriving all these lies. They'll snatch you up in their van, heartless. They'll take you from your family, smartless. They'll take you to the facility, heartless. Resistance is the only path against the darkness. Fascism is a business that only breeds corruption. Its cronies and sycophants newly full of gumption. They cry that they're the victims while prosecuting terror. They massacre the people and proclaim it's just an error. The cowering and faithless, they only try to ride it. The scared and timid, they only try to hide it. While deep behind the scenes, a harder group is growing. The resistance to the power, the forceful and the knowing. They'll snatch you up in their van, heartless. They'll take you from your family, smartless. They'll take you to the facility, heartless. Resistance is the only path against the darkness. fighting back against the demagogue to free your only siblings. Take it to the streets and show them we ain't kidding. A nationwide strike of all the precious commerce, a defiant force against the oppression that's only getting worse. Grab your weapons and your picket signs, there's no time like the present. The militant resistance is forced upon the residents. A clap back against occupation is truly so American. I feel so sad, I wish that I could care again. They'll snatch you up in their van, heartless. They'll take you from your family, smartless. They'll take you to the facility, heartless. Resistance is the only path against the darkness.
All right, well, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping on?
All right, Brian, what was that?
I don't know. You send it to me.
Yeah, I sent it to you. That's true. I did send it to you.
Why back and forth?
What? I'm trying to keep up appearances or whatever.
I know.
I did send it. All right, Tez, what did you think of that song?
To be truthful, I went and got a beer in the first part of it, but then I did hear the resistance piece, and I was listening to the second verse, and I mean, yeah, I agree with the message. Yeah, I agree with the message. Why wouldn't I? Is it more like we're asking for a technical?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of like the
first.
Itself.
The first thing I always want to start with nowadays is like, is this AI or is that a real person?
Sort of.
Sort of? That's what do you sort of? That's a no question. Is it AI or
Does
not?
it sound well? Let's put it this way. I know that voice sounds familiar as he drinks.
I don't think so.
He doesn't think it sounds familiar. No, I would agree with that as well too, Brian.
Yeah. All right, so our buddy Early Bird.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It reminds. Yes, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, so I wrote that, and then I asked him what program he used, and he gave me the info. So I ran it through the robot.
Look at you! You're on the train.
Song.
You're on the train now.
So I'm not willing to let it generate anything.
Right.
Like.
Generated I love that. I mean, you wrote it, but it generated
it made the whole song. I wrote the words.
Yeah. You're okay with generating something, yeah, of course.
The music and all that stuff. It did a pretty good job, and So anyway, I thought it was pretty good that I wrote it, and then I couldn't make it sound any good. Obviously, I don't know how to produce anything, so I used the robot. And it did the thing. So, hooray.
The robot, the robot is interesting in the sense that, it is, and where I think the artist will it'll always reign supreme. Like the human art is that maybe it'll get better, but it's formulated to a point where it's like, because it's putting one thing after another based on like what it's doing. And the human being able, like the humans have those weird, like, right? You play music, right? Yeah, it's not those things there's something a robot won't be able to ever recreate. I hope, like they almost like
the happy accidents.
The happy accidents,
grace
like,
notes that you didn't mean to play.
You didn't mean to play, but then it still weaves in and it adds that to it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe eventually they'll mimic that in some way. I would assume, right? I would, because it's out there to be mimicked, but I don't know if you can mimic that. That's always my interesting take on these. Is like that's always what's missing from it.
Well, I decided to treat it like an instrument, and
right, of course,
and I used it to help me with the thing that I had already created. So
right.
I don't feel too like, not that I have any integrity in the first place, but I I don't feel like I compromised my artistic integrity
at all. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, all of my hip hop albums that I've produced.
You've been in a lot of. You haven't been in a video in a while.
I haven't been in an award-winning music video in a while. However, our buddy Priest and Nomad has been winning awards with his documentary.
Yeah,
that he's been on the documentary circuit with, and we can't even get him on the show. He's so busy and so covered in accolades and medals and stuff. So, you know, eventually that's going to happen. He's going to get too famous even for us. So that's, you know, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But no, Priest will be on the show again, I'm sure.
Yes, he will come back on the show when he's done on this crazy tour. And I don't know how he has the energy to do that, but you know, God bless him for doing it. And I'm just so proud of him and excited and so happy to see, you know, somebody getting the credit that they so richly deserve.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hands down.
All right. Enough avoiding the topic. Let's talk about
filibustering is over.
Yes. We have filibustered enough. So before we start talking about Gaza, we're going to talk about two big wars that are going on right now, which is the war in Israel and Gaza and basically the whole Middle East at this point.
Not the war in Sudan? No, I'm sorry.
So the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza. But one of the things that I like to do when I don't know if everybody else does this, but like when I'm trying to remember what's going on or something in the world or like search for news stories, I mentally take a trip around the globe. And that's just how I can see the world clearly as such. And so I use that to make sure I'm not leaving things out. Now, of course, I'm still going to leave some things out, but we're just going to take a trip starting, you know, from home, right, where we live. And then we're just going to look around. So like Haiti is still falling apart and has not recovered from any of the things that are going on there. So, you know, that's great. Down in Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro was just convicted of overthrowing the government. We'll see how that plays out.
It'll be 100% tariffs is how it'll play out.
Yeah, sure. Until people can't get their coffee.
Oh, that's already happening.
All right. Over here in this giant continent that most people don't know how big it is in Africa, we've got in Sudan and South Sudan and Western Sudan and Darfur, there's this still a major civil war going on in Sudan, and not so much in South Sudan right now, but people are being deported to South Sudan, so that's pretty fun. And you know, Libya is still split into two countries, kind of. That's not really getting any better. And then down here in the Congo and Rwanda, Rwanda's this little tiny. You wouldn't know it from their like the jersey sponsorships, but it is a really itty bitty little country compared to its neighbors, and but it's batting well above its average, and it's got all these troops that have managed to basically overrun all of Congo, Democratic People's Republic of Congo, I should say. So, you know, that's not great. The M23 and all that's still ongoing. Moving right along, Nepal is on fire, literally, which we're gonna talk about that a little bit. We're gonna skip the Middle East in our rundown of like acknowledging other conflicts because that's the thing that we are going to talk about. Over here in Burma, there is a 5-way civil war going on. Burma or Myanmar, depending on who you ask. 5-way civil war. Thailand and Cambodia were shooting at each other again pretty recently. That's a little confusing. Nobody knows why they're shooting at each other, but then they had a meeting about it. Then they didn't have a meeting about it. So that's not great. China and the Philippines are like ramming each other's boats off the coast of Coral Islands and stuff. That's still going on while China is busy trying to figure out how to overthrow Taiwan. Which again, like, look at how little tiny Taiwan is. Like, it is this itty bitty. I'm not good at this at all. But it's a wee little island. Yeah, there's a few even smaller islands that are part of it, but that's the only bit that you can see, right? And then, you know, the Koreans are doing Korea stuff. There's a bunch of Koreans fighting in Ukraine, which is what we're going to talk about. And the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans all just signed a like buddy comedy that they're going to do together.
Right.
you know, it's called the Typodong 3. That's the name of the Korean missiles. I love that their missiles are called Typodong. It's sort of like the Kaindo penis, but a little shorter. And then
2 times.
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks. Why not?
2 times in the last 2
What are they gonna do? Shoot an ICBM at me?
Oh man.
Maybe it'd improve things. Okay, that's all going on. There's all kinds of stuff. There's no birds left in New Zealand. It's like there's a lot of shit, right? So like we don't want to. Yeah.
Is there a weird echo that Brian? Do you hear this weird echo?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
I don't.
That's coming from you.
It is coming from me. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it's gone now. I think.
Brian fixed it.
No. Oh yeah. There you go. Just had to talk about it and then it's out. Yeah, but to your point, the world is on fire.
I like it. We can do like the news.
That's real
very old
1980s type.
Hey, whatever.
Initial the starting like graphic that starts the news is just a globe spinning.
Spinning globe.
Oh god.
Yeah, there you go. We actually have breaking news, or are you just doing the sound for us, Brian?
Packers scored.
Oh shit. Well, don't do that. Also, if you own children, as I do, you should get a globe.
Yes.
And you should use it as your answer to everything. When they ask something, be like, go get your globe. And so that they have to look at it on a globe, not a map, on a globe. So they can really see like relative sizes and distances and stuff. Okay. So let's talk about Gaza.
More filibustering. That's crazy.
Sure.
We filibustered with the war. Wars going across the globe.
We filibustered about other wars.
Insane.
As a way to not talk about this war. So the situation in Gaza has gotten measurably worse since the last time we checked in about it. Hard to imagine, but basically, here's where things stand. The Israelis, of course, have taken over control of everything. Nothing's getting in or out of Gaza without the Israelis say so. That's always been the case, but it's been more so the case. They're starving the people into submission or death. Submit. I mean, what else can they do?
Yeah.
They've cut off all the food and water. There's nothing getting in. The people are dying of starvation. All of the major world organizations, including the UN, are declaring famines in Gaza, not because there aren't aid trucks available, but because the Israelis simply won't let them in. They are bulldozing huge sections of it. They continue to claim that they're blasting terrorists when they double tap journalists in hospitals.
Right.
The settlers in the West Bank are attacking aid trucks coming from Jordan that are trying to get across Israel to help the people of Gaza. Some groups like the Jordanians and some other countries are trying to airdrop some food and things into Gaza. That's not working out because it keeps crushing people. And there's no safe place for anybody to go. The Israelis are bombing relentlessly. They are trying to flatten what little structures are left. They continue to tell the people that they've just got to move to some new quote unquote safe zone. There's no capacity for anybody to move. The safe zones aren't safe. The food distribution centers are killing fields. They're just traps where they, blow a whistle. Everybody runs to try to get a packet of food and gets gunned down in the process. It's very Hunger Games. There's a flotilla of aid trying to make its way from Europe, from Italy and France with food to try to break the naval blockade to maybe land on the shores of Gaza to bring these people food. They're probably not going to get through. The Israelis will shoot them out of the water. But that was like where we were at, right? That's just kind of like, okay, this is the status quo. The Israelis kill thousands of people a month, and the world wags its finger at them and says, knock it off, but they don't knock it off. And no consequences come of it. There's like minor consequences. The French are like, oh, we're going to recognize Palestine or whatever. And the English are like, oh, we're going to recognize Palestine. Israel does not fucking care. These things about like quote unquote diplomatic pressure that can be applied.
That's over with.
And that, that's such a joke. This guy doesn't give a shit about what the world thinks about him. And case in point, look at what happened in Qatar just this week. So in the midst
an ally,
a U.S. ally where there is a United States air base, a giant United States air base, where where CENTCOM is located. Okay, here's what happened. The Israelis were nominally negotiating with Hamas about a ceasefire. And what they're negotiating over are like crazy things. Hamas is willing to have a ceasefire under nearly any circumstances, but the number one thing, basically the only thing they want, is for the Israelis to leave Gaza. And it's not really clear like what remains of Hamas for the Israelis to even be negotiating with or about.
Yeah, right.
Their tunnels are probably still there, but their ability to like feed their people and run an army is zero. So that's kind of a moot point. But anyway, Hamas wants the Israelis out of Gaza. The Israelis will simply not accept that. The Israelis want all of their hostages back, which the Hamas is willing to give in exchange for all of the prisoners that the Israelis are holding that looked like they were kind of on the edge of that deal. And right when they were on the edge of that deal, some of the remaining external Hamas leadership that are outside of Gaza were flown in from Turkey, where they're hiding, to Doha in Qatar to maybe sign the deal. And when they arrived, they were in a house and the Israelis fucking bombed it. Like, didn't tell the Qataris, didn't tell the Americans until the planes were in the air and they were like 2 minutes out. They called up, by the way, 2 minutes from now, you're going to hear a big boom. Our radar and stuff at the airbase picked it up, right? For sure. We saw them coming and was like, hey, what y'all doing? And they were like, don't worry about it. It's fine. And then bam. Well, any chance of a peace deal? It's fucking gone now. Like, you realize how bad it is that they bombed a U.S. ally where a U.S. airbase, a giant U.S. airbase is located, where there's thousands of American troops. They bombed that country, who also just took fire from the Iranians for the, the flip side of this same thing. So they've been attacked by the Israelis and Iran for the same piece of the same war. This means that the Israelis have struck now in Iran, in Qatar, in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Jordan. Like, the sovereignty of any of these countries, while Israel is clamoring, banging the drum loudly that they have sovereignty, they have the right to defend themselves. All of that, while they're blatantly violating the sovereignty of all these other countries. And what the fuck, man? What the fuck are we going to do about that?
No, there's no. It's interesting to where this has moved right now. There's always been a lack of motivation from the United States to check the state of Israel on things that it should have, right? And it's all, and right, that's because there's been a policy for years that befriends the democracy, but no, Israel is a specific location in the world that is very important to the United States. So that's the one piece of it. But now we've moved, right? I think that we've moved now to where, at least then, what was said was that Israel was the defenseless person in the region, right?
Right. Which the oppressed tiny country fighting back against a hostile neighborhood. Yeah.
Which I always found a little difficult for me to be like, oh, that's what it is when you're backed by the United States of America. There's no way for me, I can't ever like square that circle at all, because it's like, no, anything that ever, if someone does anything to you in that area of the world, the United States of America is going to come with the full force of the United States military. But no matter what, there's a time, right? There's been multiple wars where it's like, all right.
Yeah, everything up to the Yom Kippur War in 73, the Israelis basically had to fight on their own with like surplus French weapons that they got on the black market.
But now,
after that,
right. After that, and now you're for lack of a better word, you're the superpower in the region. To be honest, you are
the only nuclear armed power.
And now even. At one point, you're the aggressor in your own nation towards a group of people, but now you're an aggressor to the region. And Donald Trump has a question to ask himself about what he cares about a lot is stability in that region, and more importantly, deals with the individuals in that region. And right now, the Qataris have to be saying, "Hey, the only reason we have an air base here is for security, and where is our security?"
Right.
We. It's two allies, right? And you would think an ally would listen, right? You would think that the United States has some type of sway, but Benjamin Netanyahu is going like a full scorched earth approach at this point, in his own territory and occupied, and others now, sovereign territories. And I find that, I mean, it's despicable. I mean, I find the man to be despicable for a multitude of reasons, but now, I mean, there needs to be something has to be done now, because I think the Arab nations at a certain point will be like, wait, hold on, this isn't what we fucking signed up for, and that can get really sticky really fast, if vibes kind of change with the Arab nations who are friendly to the United States.
Well, let's keep in mind also that there are several Arab nations, Jordan and Egypt, that have peace treaties with Israel that recognize its existence and its borders as it stands. And then you've got these Abraham Accords that Trump got in his first term, where the Gulf Arabs basically are, they're in so many words recognizing the state of Israel as so like.
And I would say sold out to Palestinians, but whatever.
Sure, that's a different way of, that's one way to look at it. But basically, and the Saudis, who are the big dogs in this whole area here, right? They're desperate for a way and a method to get out from this Palestinian conflict and start making tons of money working with the Israelis. So
but Netanyahu is interested in not going to jail and staying in power.
Yeah, it is utterly baffling to me, because it does lay bare this thing that nobody here ever really meant for there to be stability or peace in that region. Like they want the Israeli right wants the conflict. They want it to stay in conflict. They don't want to ever reach a resolution. They're actively talking about annexation.
Hamas didn't want them to reach a resolution.
Yeah, so they're awfully similar, right? The Smotrich guys and Ben-Gvir, these guys, they're awfully similar to Hamas in that they want an endless conflict between these groups. They don't want any real resolution. They don't want a two-state solution, obviously. And Trump kind of like joined in on that with the bulldoze Gaza and make it into, we'll give them $5,000 to relocate or whatever, which is abhorrent. What's happening in Gaza is a genocide. There's no question about that.
Yeah. We've said that.
Everybody can see it. It's there's no other way to describe that. Why they want to genocide that group and take that piece of territory doesn't make a lot of sense, except about their relative defenselessness. But that's not the agriculturally valuable part of Israel. It's not the touristy valuable part of Israel. It's just nothing there that you'd want. But if you want to kill a bunch of people who you don't like, they're there and they can't get out. So that's a good place to do it. But now this question of attacking these things in these other sovereign nations, it's very clear that there was no end game in Gaza that had made any sense. Netanyahu continued to shatter every attempt at an end. He's never made clear what the end is. He's lost several members of his government over his lack of a plan and all of that. There's certainly no end game in terms of the West Bank, I think everybody's sort of okay with that. There being that like the de facto position is what people are seeking to codify into something resembling a country with some sovereignty and some borders. But what is this goal? What are you pursuing by bombing other countries that are ostensibly friendly to Israel? You know, Qatar and Israel are working deals. Like they hadn't signed the Abraham Accords, but they're awfully close to doing it. Qatar is loaded with foreign military bases, both not just from the United States, but also from other European powers and other. You know, they are the diplomats of the Gulf, right? They recognize that oil and gas isn't going to be their future. They've diversified into other things. They're the most modern part of this economy. They bought a World Cup. They conveniently hid their slave labor, even though on Google Maps it still shows up as labor camps, which is pretty funny. They did all of these things to kind of like tug the rest of that region out from behind the 80s and get them moving into this century. And now the Israelis just obliterated that. And yeah, to your point about security, I mean, for fuck's sake, the whole purpose of letting the Americans take up space and make you a bit of a target by being in your country is that they will defend you in defense of themselves. Now, you can't imagine a situation where the American military picks up a flight of Israeli jets inbound and scrambles fighters to shoot them down. That's just not
it's not going to happen.
But we are really at a point where, like,
if it God forbid, if it did, it would. I don't know. I mean, I think that sends one of the direct, like, I don't know. That sends a direct message, and I don't know if that's severed.
Maybe you arrange something like that. You know, you get them to send a drone after something, and you shoot the drone down, and you just say, like, all right, guys, you were flying over this territory that we've got a no-fly zone on, or we've got, you know, an obligation to protect. We weren't sure what y'all were up to. We shot you down. Understand that we could do it and make that same mistake with a pilot in it next time. Like, let's not do that again. Maybe you start with that. I don't know. I mean, number one, you got to cut off the weapons, and that's not just about like stop selling them anything. You have to ground their fleet. You know, they've got this fleet of American fighter aircraft that they are using to perpetrate all of these things. There is a way, whether on paper or
violating international laws, what they're perpetrating, right?
Well, they don't care about that.
Yeah,
like I mean, you
clearly
that.
Exactly. What am I talking about?
You violated this thing.
They've been violating international law.
You want to watch Bibi wipe his ass with the document? Tell him he's violating it.
They're starving fucking children.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. Starving shit. They're massacring your children.
Yeah, right.
So, no, they don't care about that. But the Americans can ground the planes. They can either shut off systems that are necessary for them to fly if they don't play ball, or they can, you know, just call them up and be like, we are going to shut off the systems mid-flight if you don't knock it off. Like, there's things that can happen, and it has to come to that, and then that irreparably damages the relationship. You know, It never really will come back from that. So, and were we in a situation where we had, you know, it's not like Biden wasn't very supportive of Israel. He was extremely supportive of Israel. But if we had competent leadership at the Department of Defense, in the intelligence community, and in the White House, I would imagine they'd be working something out. But we don't. We have a madman talking about the Mediterranean Riviera or whatever.
Right.
And so, of course, they're not going to work out a deal. Like, there's no grown-ups there to, like, manage this.
So, I mean,
my ghost is back.
The ghost is back. The ghost is returned.
Yeah.
I find I've always found America's posture again towards Israel to be very unique in the sense that obviously I know there's a policy of defending whatever happens, no matter what in that region, whatever is done. America will defend the state of Israel, right? So that's always been the case. All right, I get that.
But not that we're willing to commit troops to. It's that we're going to defend by letting them do horrible shit.
Horrible shit. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I wonder now, because again, there will be an after. And it'll be an after, like the Trump administration. There'll be some type of after. And I think that maybe even it might become bipartisan to an extent, because even if you look at the Trump, if you look at the actual Trump policy around like not going out and fighting other war, right, and more in like this it doesn't work. And I think there are people in his base that are like, well, why are we supporting them to go ahead and do these? I think there are people that are wondering, why is that money being spent there and not at home, right? They don't care about the actual, like, whatever, like, the posture has been for America for whatever, like 60, 70 years.
Yeah, but the problem is that the part of his base that wants there not to be any more foreign wars is also the evangelical part of his base, and they are not going to give up on this. So I don't see that part of it cracking.
Didn't we have MTG talking about like, why we
but I don't. Okay,
that's random.
I don't think that Trump ever meant that he wants to stop warring. I think he wants to war.
No, I think
that was a lie.
I don't necessarily think that's a lie. I don't think he is a big war. I don't think he's a warmonger. I think if you look at his back and forth with John Bolton a lot of times, I don't think he looks at it. I don't think he looks at it that way, because it goes back to his whole like deal making and the peace process, and eventually this peace prize. Like, I think that is a big piece.
Yeah, but he's so willing to use the military for everything, and he
like domestically, but I also think he's willing to use the military for things. But when it comes to these large conflicts, that is something he doesn't have a stomach for. And I think even in looking, I mean, from the reporting, that the conversation he had with Netanyahu, and granted, it doesn't go anywhere, but it's like, hey, what the hell are you doing? What did you think you were going to accomplish with this? Like, I don't ever. And again, it's nothing forceful.
Yeah, but what's he going to do about it? That's the thing. The policy.
And I would ask that. I would ask that about many American presidents. About
I think that's nothing new. I think that in a way, the American policy regarding Israel is effectively a no-win trap. We can't get out from this, because if we put meaningful pressure on the Israelis to stop doing things by, say, cutting off weapons or cutting off intelligence or cutting off access, we may never really be able to get that alliance back. And that maybe is too critical to the security of the United States in a global conflict than people are willing to talk about. Although, depending on who's running that show over there, if you're counting on the Israelis to do the thing if America is in a conflict in that region or otherwise, I'm not sure I'd trust that Netanyahu would do that, right? If, let's say, during the Iraq War, the Americans routinely took advantage of the Israelis' help with things like aerial surveillance or flying air traffic control, AWACS, and all that other kind of stuff, in-air refueling, all of those kinds of things as we were bombing Iraq, as we were bombing ISIS, as we were doing all of that, working hand in hand with the Israelis on coordinated strikes, on coordinated intelligence, all that. I'm not sure that if you've got Netanyahu in charge now, I mean, he was in charge then, but this version of him, and America was to do another war in the Middle East or otherwise, that the Israelis would actually share the right intelligence, or that they would let us refuel, or that they, so like, if you did anything, that chance is obliterated. And
I think it starts with the Israeli people, and they need to work.
It's going to have to be them.
It starts there, and it needs to be a collection of Israeli citizens that realize that their safety has been put in jeopardy again because of their government, right? And
you're starting to see it. Reservists are refusing to show up. Right. And I think, you've got this Israeli Defense Force that is entirely dependent on the citizen reserve that comes, when they get called up. but they all can say no.
Yeah,
and that would be the thing.
I mean, it is the Middle East. Is that country of the, like, from revolution? I don't know. I don't know. What does that look like? Because again, enough people. I mean, we've seen Israeli citizens hit the streets before, and not that they've necessarily hit the streets in the sense of like, oh, we're trying to stop like the Gaza war in the sense of that. But I mean, specifically around like the Supreme Court changes and things and the law changes that have been happening.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's this crazy thing. As you know, I happen to know a little bit about how the people there are receiving the news about stuff.
Right.
They, by and large, don't think that the people in Gaza are starving to death. They, by and large, aren't really being informed about the atrocities that are going on in there. And they just sort of think that it's overblown. The
Daily did an actual show on this about the woman who was a news broadcaster, and like she brought up about like feeling for Palestinians, and they were like, "What the hell, lady?"
Yeah, and even the people who were protesting the changes at the Supreme Court and all of that you might consider to be the sort of centrist or center left versions of Israeli politics, they're all still fine with killing Gazans. Like that doesn't matter to them, and they don't think it's happening. I mean, you're not going to tell them that the IDF is committing a genocide. They'll never believe it. They'll call you an anti-Semite for saying that, because how can we be the ones to perpetrate a genocide? We're the victims of the genocide.
That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, we're not immune. Look at what's happening. I mean, but they don't see that. The media there is very it's not that it's controlled, but they just simply won't show it. The government doesn't have to lean on them to not show this stuff. They don't want to show it. They're not interested in that. So the people in Israel just have no idea how terrible the situations are in all of these other within their own borders, really. So I don't know. I mean, but yeah, to your point, it's going to have to come from there, because there's nothing that an American president can do. And there's certainly nothing this American president can do. He has no credibility with the world. He has no credibility with his own defense establishment. There's just nothing. You know, he told everybody he'd end the war in 24 hours, and he hasn't done that. And he sent Witkoff back and forth, and he's a bumbling fool. You know, and these guys are all playing him like a fiddle.
You got to be careful though, because again, right? I know we always talk about there's not going to be elections, but eventually, like the way if there's a populist movement that swings to the left, right? I don't think that there's an appetite right on the left at this point for Israel. Like if there's not a moderate, let's just say, right? Eventually, again, there's not a moderate that's in the White House and there's someone who's like far to the left, I think you could see some crazy different posture. Like that makes what like Obama saying, yo, criticizing Israel, which wasn't even crazy. He was just like, I don't, and that threw everybody up in arms there. I think you could see something that is actually a lot more drastic for the state of Israel, that again, it's still the United States of America at the end of the day. Like, regardless of what all is going on, like its backing, at least still for now, means something. And there is not an appetite in this country right now. I think from the left center to the far left of what's happening in Israel now.
Well, the real indicator to watch is people like me. If the Israelis have lost the support of the center left Jewish Americans, the Chuck Schumers of the world, they got nothing. I mean, in America, they've got the evangelical base, but if the people like me aren't here, like making they're just defending themselves argument, there's no political will to protect them ever again.
That's why I think that election in New York, I think that was odd to me, because I don't like, again, not that he's out there like actively campaigning on it, but I mean, I think that type of individual still.
Obviously, the mayor of New York doesn't have any sway on American
right? Exactly.
But in terms of will center left or progressive Jewish Americans vote for somebody who calls what's happening in Gaza a genocide? The answer is apparently yes.
Apparently, yes. And I still find that to be one of the more shocking things that have happened this year. I was like, what? I was there that day when the election came. I was like, what?
Look, I've been bar mitzvahed. I can read and write Hebrew. I go to, I went to Hebrew school. I'm going to go to services for Rosh Hashanah. I'm not I'm not observant by any stretch of the imagination now, but I am deeply Jewish. And I think that what's happening is completely awful, and it is genocide. And I don't like that it's tied to anybody who has a similar background to me. I don't like that.
Right. And I think there's a lot of people that feel that way.
I think I'm not alone.
You're not alone. And I find that to be something different in my time in this country, which I've seen a sea change on that. There was a time where you couldn't. I've tried to have these conversations and people have shut me down. And again, friends, but just I'm not ever going to be able to there was never a way in on that. No, they had their position. I could state whatever I wanted to state, but that position wasn't changing. It was, but I find that this is a different time.
This is a different thing.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me about the response to the first Intifada, that was all completely defensible. It was disproportionate, heavy-handed, clearly meant to instill fear and pain and terror and to strike back and harm the people who did the things. But I could easily make a case that look, they started this shit. If they didn't want the smoke, they shouldn't have come with it. That could be that. This is nothing like that. It's so overwhelmingly disproportionate. It's so long-term, and it's so clearly based on the plan of annihilation that it's not a reaction to October 7th at all. This is now
long gone.
Yeah, that's long gone. This is a now, as far as I can tell, infinite campaign of destruction. There's no end. There's no plan. There's no okay, we got the bad guy. There's no who's the bad guy. You keep killing bad guys and then telling me that they got a new bad guy. So that's what I kill next.
It's infinite bad guys.
Isn't that convenient? It's like a Mario level where the Goombas just keep coming and you can just keep hopping on them. What a fucking world. All right. Let's take a break we can come back and talk about something else horrible and sad and miserable, which is yet another big war. And then we're going to have the third half of the show, which is about something happening here that is very serious and scary. And then we'll go on to the even more recent serious and scary thing in the fourth half of the show. So we're about halfway there. Almost. If you're keeping track at home, you're playing the home game. ChipChat.
Midnight. We're shooting for midnight.
We're hoping. All right, so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to ChipChat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Sidekick, kissing Donald's ring, looks like you do anything. Lots of money behind that guy, pretty young and the beat is fly. Seize the state and abuse it, January 6th this was fine. It's just a move for Vance. And if he gets the chance, he'll be the Vance VP. One heartbeat from autocracy. Cash machine, feeding votes to the tangerine. Oh yeah. He'll advance climate change. Let Putin conquer Ukraine. Who's to the world? GOP chasing a fantasy. He's a real chameleon. Social media posts have gone.
Atheist to a Catholic, names he's had a few, doesn't like immigrants.
Unless they help finance him being Vance VP. One big match from the nuclear key. Bad mouthing all the Muslims in our country. Oh yeah. He might turn out to be a new right replacement theory. Ooh, watch out world, no Putin's glee at the Vance VP. Rubbing his hand, you see.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's probably on?
All right, so we just talked about one war. Let's talk about another one. This is our favorite one, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite war?
Favorite war?
Yeah.
It's one clear favorite war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. It's clear.
Yeah. Well, you like the outcome of it anyway. The war part of it might not
right,
be
yeah,
good.
the war part, but yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take a trip now. We're going over. Oh, how am I doing that? No, I'm not doing that right. You see this yellow guy right there? That's it. That's where we're going. This is Ukraine.
Don't tell me you can't find Ukraine on the map.
No, I can definitely. I'm not Mike Pompeo.
How's it, man?
That's an NPR joke.
It's an NPR joke, yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm very sad about Susan Stamberg finally retiring, even though she's 80 and deserves it. But
Right. She can't retire. She should be able to retire.
she can't retire. I need her in my life forever. And I learned that of all of the things on NPR that I love, she's responsible for way more of them than I knew. She initiated The Puzzler. She created Car Talk by accident by bringing them on to answer car questions. So, and Weekend Edition Sunday and everything. I mean, I get a huge kick out of the way Aisha Roscoe does the Will Shortz.
Oh my God.
I just love the way she says, and puzzle master.
Right. It's
you know, the build up and the release and the way she says the word. It's so great. And it's like, oh, well, Susan Sandberg made that possible.
Right.
And when they have other people host it and they're like, yeah, it's not, that part of it is the thing. It's like, yeah, it's just not quite there. I need her voice saying that whole intro. Yeah. I live for that every week. It's like,
yeah, of course.
It's been a tough week, but at least Aisha Roscoe is going to introduce Will Shortz and it's going to feel great. Okay. So anyway, over to Ukraine, where, which is not Bangladesh. And okay, here's what you got to know. Ukraine has been in this war with Russia for a long time. With the Russians invaded, they attacked, they're killing lots and lots of people. A lot of Russians are dying, in this war. They are losing like 1,000 troops a day or something like that. Maybe not a day, a week. But they're getting massacred out there. So like initially this war was fought in a very old school World War I sort of way. There was trenches. The Russians tried to advance with tanks. The Ukrainians stopped them with trenches. Then it was about artillery, as they were both sort of in their lines and shooting at each other like over large distances. And then the artillery moved to like missile artillery, ATACMS, and all this other kind of stuff. But by now, this war is being fought almost entirely through drone warfare, which is crazy.
Crazy.
And so every day, every night, the Russians send an absolute barrage of drones and missiles to attack Ukraine. And they just fly them right over and, try to hit apartment buildings or whatever they can hit, critical infrastructure, things that they're after. And by and large, the Ukrainians shoot a lot of them down. Right. Some of them make it through, but
there's been attacks on Kyiv as of late.
Yeah, in particular, they've been really interested in trying to punch big holes into Kyiv, which is the most heavily fortified area. But it's a very stalemate situation. There's no territorial gain going on. This war is just dragging on with no discernible outcome at all. The attempts at peace are going absolutely nowhere. Trump obviously had the meeting with Putin, and then with Zelensky and the rest of the Europeans went nowhere. Trump doesn't know what the fuck's going on in this war. He knows that he owes Putin, so he doesn't want to like get too critical of him and all of that. And the Russians can basically keep this up for as long as they want. They have as many people as they need. They're buying cannon fodder from the North Koreans who are perfectly willing to sell it to them. And as long as they've got a steady supply of money for their oil, which is coming from China, which is not being sanctioned, and I guess is some still coming from India, which is being sanctioned, they can just keep this going for forever. And part of the way that they can keep this going is that the West is sort of paralyzed by their unwillingness to really take this thing by the horns. And part of that is because, the Americans we don't want to be decisive in this. We could be. We could give the Ukrainians all of the stuff they need. We could treat them like we treat the Israelis and give them literally anything they ask for. And they could just obliterate Moscow. Like they could do that. And we could just give them the weapons to let them do that and say, hey, look, they did what they did. We just sold them the weapons. And they're willing to do that. They want to do that, right? We could do the same thing with Europe. We could sell them the weapons to sell to or give to the Ukrainians. That's kind of the deal that we've got currently. But there's like limits on what we're giving them.
Right.
So we're giving the Ukrainians just enough to keep going, but not enough to win. The Russians don't have enough to win. And NATO doesn't want to touch this with a 20-foot pole.
No.
Because that's the big war, right? That's the thing that NATO was created to do. Well, this week they might have had their hand forced a little bit.
Right.
The Russians flew drones into Poland. And there have been a few
close, things close.
Yeah, a missile here, a drone there that's crossed into Polish airspace, but you can see which direction it's going. It's clearly not going to go into, it's not meant to go into Poland.
Right.
Well, these ones couldn't tell. So basically, the Soviets flew these drones into Poland. They came from Belarus into Poland. I don't know if Brian has the map that I put in the doc that can kind of show this so that people can kind of get a good look at it. But if you're sort of thinking about looking at this on the map, if you look at Poland, you look just to the east of it, there's Belarus. If you look to the southeast of it, there's Ukraine. Most of the attacks on Ukraine have been to the east of all of that. So it's flying directly from Russia into eastern Ukraine. But to attack western Ukraine, most of these attacks have been coming from Belarus directly into Ukraine or from Russia over Belarus into Ukraine, because Belarus is just part of Russia at this point.
Right.
So
yeah,
they're not a country. So, but these ones came from Belarus into Poland, flying westbound, and then we're maybe going to loop south into Ukraine or maybe not. But the Polish Air Force wasn't taking a guess at it. So they're like, fuck, scramble the fighters.
Right.
Now, a thing to know about this is that it wasn't just Poland that was involved in shooting these down. So it was the Dutch F-35s were involved. Poland had F-16s, and the Italians were flying their AWACS, which is the sort of early warning. Basically, you can think of it as air traffic control in the sky. They can see stuff over the horizon. They've got radar. It's the spinning disc on the top of the airplane. Okay. The thing to know about like European Air Force or just in general defense is that like Europe is geographically tiny. Again, we're gonna look at this map here. Here's the United States, right? Like that's the size of a real country. That's what countries should look like. And then look at Europe. Europe itself is like the whole thing is this big.
Right.
Not counting Spain, even if we want to count Spain. Okay. It's pretty geographically small, you know, and they've got pink money. So like it's rough for them. And the only way they can pretend to be a country or a group of countries is to cooperate. So like at any given time, who's in the air as the response could be the Dutch, could be the Germans, could be the French, could be the English. They're all just sort of like taking turns. They're on a rotation or whatever, right? So yeah, the Poles scrambled their fighters. That the Dutch were the ones in the air could have just as easily been the Germans or the French or the Swedes or whoever at this point. Now that Sweden's in NATO. So anyway, they shot down a bunch of these things, which turned out to be dummies. That's like a big twist on this because the Russians are flying these dummy drones that look like and have the same radar signature as the armed drones to try to overwhelm the Ukrainian air defenses a lot of the time. And so why were they flying dummy drones into Poland that looked like they were on a flight path for an attack? Now imagine if the Poles just had like shot them down and done nothing about it, or didn't shoot them down and just figured that they were dummies and let them go. Well, the next thing that would happen is the Russians would try another thing or a bigger thing, or, you know, so they can't do that. So they shoot them down, bam. And they invoke Article 4.
Right. Not 5.
NATO. Not 5. But here's where we're going to get to 5, because everybody's talking about, oh, well, it's Article 5, and we're going to be this. What people are worried about is that the Russians end up actually shooting at and or killing some soldiers or airmen or whatever of a NATO country. And Article 5 could be invoked and basically draw the rest of NATO into the defense of that country. And defense meaning striking back at the Soviets.
Right.
That's the common understanding of Article 5. But I'm going to read you Article 5 because it does matter. And you're going to notice some key things in here. You ready?
Yeah, what's up?
The parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all, and consequently they agree that if such an armed attack occurs, each of them, in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with the other parties, such actions as deemed necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain the security of the North Atlantic area. Any such armed attack and all measures taken as a result thereof shall immediately be reported to the Security Council. Such measures shall be terminated when the Security Council has taken the measures necessary to restore and maintain international peace and security. What stands out to you about that?
I mean, as you read it, I interpret it as, let's say they end up striking and killing someone in Poland, right? That Poland, like, could ask for Article 5 to be enacted, but who jumps in out? It doesn't necessarily seem to be all of NATO. It could who decides to go into this it seems to be very vague. And obviously, like the one time this has been enacted is for us, right? For 9/11, right? Today, right? Exactly. Today, 24 years ago. But I guess I would need to look. I don't know if every country at the time sent troops into Afghanistan.
Now you're kind of getting to the key thing.
They didn't, right? Yeah, no, it was a specific contingent.
And some of them were willing to do certain things, and some of them were willing to do other things, right? So this is that key line: in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense. So, taking the Afghanistan example, the French sent some troops, the Germans sent some troops, the Italians sent some troops, the English sent some troops.
Right.
Denmark didn't want to send any troops. We're very happy to provide air support, in air refueling, surveillance, whatever else. But that's the kind of thing where each country basically decides how much of their own stuff, whether it's people or, capacity or whatever, they're willing to contribute. So imagine Poland gets attacked. They call out Article 5 and Sweden and Germany are like, yeah, we got you. We're in. And France is like, yeah, we'll fly air support, but we don't want to put any troops on the ground. And they go, hey, America. And Trump goes, oh, no, you're on your fucking own, man.
I barely want to be part of this.
Yeah, I don't even want to be part of this. That's a problem. And I think Putin knows it.
Yeah.
And so that's why he did this. He's all but daring them. He's going to try it again. He flew these drones in. He got them to react. They're going to do it again. Of course they're going to do it again. See what else happens. What do we do then? What does this world look like? We are already, as we demonstrated by spinning that globe and showing you how much conflict is going on around the world, the capacity of the governing big countries to manage this stuff is already at the limit. Add another conflagration, especially in Europe, where a lot of the command and control takes place. I mean, look, to the people in Nicaragua or Togo, what's going on in Europe couldn't matter less. They don't care.
Right.
They got their own stuff to deal with, and they're going to be fine. It's not great, but they're going to be fine, right? It doesn't matter. But to the big countries in the global integrated economy, in the global integrated information age, that's a big fucking deal, man.
Yeah.
And again, this is happening when we don't have grown-ups running the show. There's no coordinated response. These guys can't find their ass from a hole in the ground. Their big lead on the Charlie Kirk thing is we've got a shoe print. The guy was wearing Converse. Oh, fuck me. Who doesn't own a pair of Chuck Taylors? Jesus.
Right.
That doesn't narrow it down at all.
Great identifier.
Yeah. Good job, idiots. Wait, call me when you got some useful information. Those are the guys running the show right now. What the fuck? I don't feel safe. I'll tell you that. I don't like that at all. No, I don't like that. So, that's going on. It's cool. We're just going to also, by the way, they were flying these drones into Polish airspace all night. It started at 11:30 at night.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was the duration of how long that went on.
The last one was detected at 6:30 in the morning. The Russian chargé d'affaires, that's a statecraft word. Basically, not the ambassador, the next guy up or below the ambassador. I don't know, assistant ambassador. The chargé got summoned to Warsaw, and they're like, yo, what are you doing? And he said, quote, we consider the accusations groundless, and no evidence that these drones are Russian was presented, except for all the pieces of them that are Russian.
Right.
Okay. Russian Ministry of Defense said, quote, no targets on Polish territory were planned when asked about the incident, but said that it had launched a major assault on Western Ukraine. So they're either just utterly inept or they're lying. I think lying is the right word. Yet you want to guess? I don't know.
Lying.
They're lying. Trump on Wednesday offered a cryptic expression, and this is what I texted you. He goes, "What's with Russia violating Polish airspace with drones? Here we go." What is he, Seinfeld now? What's the deal with Russia violating Poland's airspace? What's the deal with airline food? I mean, what are you doing here, guy? I know he's stuck in the 80s, but okay.
Yeah, I'm
that's a coherent strategy. I'm just happy that Pete Hegseth texted me what they're actually going to do about this.
Of course. Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Right. Bad news all around. In Ukraine, even as many express solidarity with Poland, they're like, hey, good job shooting down 8 of them. We shoot down several hundred a night. So now you got some idea what's going on. There's also 10,000 American troops in Poland, by the way.
Poland, right, yeah.
For fun.
Right, just for fun.
They like the pierogies.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Join the army, go to Poland, eat well. Just go to Western Pennsylvania, but sure, why not? We don't have any sanctions. We're nowhere closer to any kind of settlement, and Trump is being played or helping the Russians delay this. I don't know which.
Yeah, it's very hard to figure out where we're at with policy towards Ukraine.
Somewhere between a P-tape and a bribe. If this incursion into the rest of Europe continues, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to consider that the Europeans may lose patience altogether with the U.S. and do this shit themselves. That would be bad.
Yeah.
What does that look like? If it drags on, if it drags the rest of the West into a war with Russia, can we even do that? Like, does NATO know how to fight big wars anymore, or does it only know how to fight, little skirmishes in the desert? I don't know. Our systems aren't built for that. We used to have hundreds and hundreds of tanks in Europe expecting a big tank battle for Central Europe and the air forces to match it. That is not what's over there now. So I don't know.
And it's clear that the world is marching towards a large conflict, right? Because at least as I understand, like this from a historical lens, when you have a lot of these small things happening around the globe, eventually one of these things, like they join together and then they turn into something that ends up being larger. And then you end up having these groups that band together, right? When you have these, right, axes of evil, right? But like real versions of those eventually prop up.
They already exist. And if you've got people like Putin who are part of them and willing to try to push against other alliances, and you've got Netanyahu doing similar things where he is driving people into alliances to protect their own ass, it doesn't take but one archduke getting shot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly my point there.
So, not great. You want to go talk about the domestic stuff here, or do you want to take a break before we do that?
No, I guess let's drive it home.
All right, we're going to plow through.
All
right, we're going to talk about immigration and what's going on with various court rulings and various things that are happening vis-a-vis that. And the first way we're going to talk about that is to mention that the House Oversight Committee released hundreds of pages of documents that it received from sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's estate on Monday, including a redacted version of the, quote, birthday book, which allegedly was gifted to Epstein on his 50th birthday with messages from high-profile friends. So when we talk about immigration, when we talk about these quote-unquote crime emergencies, we want you to focus on the word Epstein, because that is what this is about. It is what it's always been about. So I don't know if Brian's got the images from any of this. I'd really caution about showing too much of it.
God, yeah.
But suffice it to say that the New York Times broke some of this, but the Wall Street Journal had the first.
Yeah.
And they were right. When they described the drawing, they were right. They had the drawing.
To print that in the journal.
There it is.
There it is. To print that in the journal, you can't just print this stuff, y'all. Like, there are general counselors. There's a teams of lawyers that are before you can go and actually write the words out that this is the reporting. They're vetting this stuff. Like, no one's getting defamation lawsuits that they can't like win, right? Like, they can't defend themselves against. So,
but for whatever reason, Trump doesn't know that. So he sued the Wall Street Journal and said that this thing didn't exist. Well, it very clearly does exist. And the Journal was like, I'll see you in court. Let's go. And now they were the first to break this stuff about the book. They got the things from the estate by way of House oversight. The Democrats on House oversight who got these things from the subpoenas, they've been quick to release it. That they drew a little bit of fire from Comer about that, and some other, House Republicans were like, "Hey, this seems like you're politicizing it," and they're like, "No." And this is all Garcia. He's playing hardball and he means it. So he's just, we get it, you get it. That's the deal. We're going to make sure that there's no victim names in it, and then we're going to release it as fast as possible so that the American people can see what's going on.
I thought the Trump bases, that's what they wanted.
That's what they said they wanted, right? And they're getting it. It's remarkably gross. I don't know that how I didn't think it was going to be this awful, but the stuff that's in this book is just foul and awful. And it all gets down to the same thing, including this whole thing where Epstein's holding an oversized novelty check from Trump with a handwritten message below it that says, Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women, sells a fully depreciated woman to Donald Trump for $22,500. Could have got a little more for her, maybe. I don't know. But
disgusting.
How depreciated? What are we talking about here? You can't sell people. We had a war about that.
Yeah.
The fuck, man? That's disgusting and gross. And then, of course, the response from the White House is to say, this is fake.
Fake. It's a fake signature.
It's a fake signature. He didn't sign that. That book didn't exist. It's he called Epstein his best pal. What? Britain had to sack their
that was
ambassador.
Crazy. Yeah. He showed up in there.
He's in the book. That's not good. Who is out there believing that this is fake? I mean, apparently half of Congress. They're all like, oh, yeah, it's fake. It's fake. It's fake. They all get interviewed. And they're all like, oh yeah, no, I don't care about that. That's fake. It's fake news. It's what Burchett was like, anybody could forge the signature.
Right. And like, come on now.
Isn't that the whole point of a signature?
Sharp, right. It's the one, like, it's a Sharpie signature at that.
I don't understand why this is the hill that some of them are willing to die on. They want to go down defending this to their own base?
I mean, it upends a lot of things for them.
Yeah, to admit it.
Right, admit it, yeah.
All right, so then let's talk about what's going on with the Supreme Court side of all of this. I assume the game's almost over.
No, almost.
We were down a touchdown last I looked, but
it's not looking good.
It's not looking good.
They're going for 2. Commanders scored, so they're down by 11.
And Eckler went off the field, non-contact injury.
Ooh, that's not good. We need him.
Yeah.
Okay. So you may remember, we talked about this actually, is that the district court and then the Ninth Circuit said that the way that Trump's ICE raids in Los Angeles were being carried out was illegal because they were picking people up based on where they were congregating,
right?
What they looked like, or the language that they were speaking, what kind of job they were doing. All of that is prohibited by the Constitution, specifically in the Fourth Amendment. And and the judges were pretty clear ruling that. They're like, look, you can't do that. You You cannot use race as your reason to suspect somebody being here illegally.
Right.
I don't know how else they would suspect that, but that's the thing that you can't use. So
you can't use it. Yeah.
Right. Well, that got challenged up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, actually, you can do that. The justices who apparently divided 6-3 along ideological lines put on hold a federal district court's order that reined in what critics called roving raids by immigration and customs enforcement. That judge had found that the tactics were likely unconstitutional because the agents were detaining people without probable cause at car washes, bus stops, and Home Depot parking lots based on stereotypes. Hooray. But the high court said this is on the rocket docket, so it doesn't get a explanation or a full hearing or anything like that. They just ruled. They're like, nope, we're staying that order. You can go back to the roving things. But Beer Can Brett added to this. He had a concurring opinion in which he said that you can use race. He said that. The high court's majority offered no explanation for its decision to grant the Trump administration this stuff. However, Kavanaugh wrote separately in support of the decision, saying that it was reasonable to briefly question people who meet multiple, quote, common sense criteria for possible illegal presence, including employment and day labor or construction and limited English proficiency.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, especially after I watched him yelling about PJ and Squee, I don't think his English proficiency is all that great either.
Right.
Maybe we should be detaining Brett Kavanaugh. Also,
and when is race seems to be very interesting how it's used in the court, right? Right? You can't use race for certain things, right? But we're able to use race here. And
you can't use race for college admission.
Right.
You can't use race to try to level access to resources for equitable distribution, but you can use it to detain people for being here illegally. Also, his idea of like what's happening and what's actually happening don't match. He's talking about people being briefly questioned. Imagine a situation where like that's the case. If that was what's happening,
that's not.
It's kind of like, yeah, cops walk up to you, hey man, are you here legally? And you go, yeah. And they go, all right, carry on. If it was that, sure. I mean, it's annoying, but sure. That's not what's happening. They're like walking up, going, come here. They grab them, throw them in the van, take them away.
Right.
If they've got papers, maybe they let them out.
Maybe.
Maybe they don't. There's all of these stories about people who have been held for days and days.
American citizens. American citizens and legal and people who are here legally.
People with status, people with all kinds of reasons that this should not be happening to them are being held for days on end incommunicado, cannot reach their lawyers, cannot reach their family. Nobody knows where they're at. They're suffering, these sleep deprivation. They're being exposed to these dangerous situations of too many people in unsafe conditions, not being fed enough. There's all of these stories. And somehow Beer Can Brett's like, well, yeah, that's fine. If they eventually get out, then there's no harm, no foul. Yo, throw them in there. Put them in the icebox for a little while. Let him see what it's like. Live on one burrito a day for several days. I mean, this is crazy.
And that it's on the rocket docket is really the way it's almost like, I mean, we'll probably look back at this as a strategy that the Trump appointed justices and Donald Trump used to enact all this stuff.
Yeah, and they're not unique in this, right? The rocket docket has been expanding over the years. Everybody seems to like to use this. And, as we learned, the court is not a Denny's, but it is open all the time. So we do, this is just how they do it. This can come back, by the way. It can come back up through the 9th, and it can come back to get a full hearing on the merits and all of this stuff, which it likely will. But it does matter because now we're going to talk about Chicago, where they're doing the same thing. So they have got, what do they call this stupid operation? They've got a dumb
Midwest
name.
something. What's it called?
Midway Blitz.
Which
Operation
is crazy.
Midway Blitz.
Which is crazy because the studio that actually created NFL Blitz, I'm pretty sure is Midway.
That's hilarious.
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
There's no way they know that.
There's no way they know that. Hold on. Let me double check that I'm not just spitting. Midway video.
So basically, they're sending ICE to ransack Chicago. Now, this is the playbook. We talked about this before this happened. Before any of these things happened, I talked about there is a standard fascist playbook, which is that you go into an area, you declare there to be a crime emergency, you detain the people that you don't like, you provoke a response, and then you come with a heavy-handed crackdown on that response.
No,
they are doing that.
Playlist. Yeah, no, I mean you're right.
Who makes it? Is it Midway?
Hold on, but no, I was just saying that's the playlist that the authoritarian government.
That's exactly how they're doing it. So here we saw.
Yes, Midway makes Blitz along with Mortal Kombat and everything. Yes, of course. Which is when they said it, I was like, Midway Blitz. I was like, that seems. Why did I know that? Where did you take that?
Why does that seem so familiar?
Very familiar.
Standing 4 wide, shoulder to shoulder.
Right. Exactly.
Kids, back in the late 1900s. We had things called arcades we would go to play video games, and each machine just had the one game in it, and you could play with your friends who also were in the same room as you, touching the same machine as you, while you each had a joystick and a couple of buttons, and you would play these games with each other or against each other, and it was fun.
A lot of fun.
It was great, and when you won, you got to rub it in their face. When you lost, you got to shove them and tell them to shut the fuck up and don't rub it in your face. So, history.
Different time.
Yeah, better times. All right, so yeah, they're sending the ICE agents loose in Chicago. The Chicago people already don't like this idea. They've seen what's happened in D.C. They've seen what's happened in Los Angeles. They've seen what's happened in Texas and Florida and all these other places. It's not a good idea. The people are going to be mad. They're going to react. Trump's going to send the guard, despite the fact that Pritzker hasn't asked for it. He keeps begging Pritzker to ask him for the guard. Right. And Pritzker's like, if he wants to come to Chicago, he's more than invited. Like, I'll take him around. We can show him the situation. It's not what he thinks it. This guy lives in such a completely bizarro world. He doesn't even know any of this stuff is going, or he doesn't care.
No, it's to drum up, like, again, it's like his political base.
Yeah, but he's doing it for the purpose of perpetrating violence. And so this is the playbook. We've seen this. This isn't new. We don't have to rehash that. But the question is, what's going to happen? Now, we've got the court ruling saying that you can't do this, that it's legal to do it in LA. We might get another district court in Chicago or surrounding areas, Indiana maybe, who rules that you can't do it in Chicago. Does that go back to the rocket docket? Does it go up to the circuit? Does that create the conflict necessary for a real hearing at the Supreme Court? Does the Supreme Court have time to hear that? They've already said they're going to take on some of the cases about the immigration raids in this session that they're already gearing up for. You know, at this point, should the Supreme Court just stop having terms and actually become a Denny's?
Right. Yeah. Right. Forget the terms. Yeah.
Like, just be open.
365. Right.
Yeah. Just be open and let's do this. I mean,
at the rate that this administration appeals, I mean, I doesn't seem to be that far fetched.
I don't want to see troops in Chicago. No, I don't want to see troops deployed against Americans anywhere. No. But I would bet, maybe not next week, but by the week after next, when you see us, it'll be with Chicago under similar circumstances as us here in the district. And, you know, that's just this is the country that we're in, which gets us to the thing that we unfortunately have to talk about this week. And I do want to preface this by saying Tez's favorite line, this is a young country.
Yeah. And this part of the being a young country isn't new. I think it's
not new.
It's new I think it's more new for us in our like the younger generation. I think that is it. Yeah. If you were growing up through what, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, that it's more, and then even prior to that, I can still call off like,
sure. Yeah. If you were alive and like cognizant in the 70s or earlier,
Right.
the concept of political violence in America seems normal.
Yeah.
And when people say, well, this is not who we are, we're not a country, we don't do political violence in the United States, those people sound ridiculous.
That's a lie.
This country is founded on violence, on political violence particularly, whether it is the wholesale destruction of the people who originally lived here, whether it is the importation of slave labor and the terrible repercussions that came after that, whether it is the utter destruction of the environment of this country, the Civil War itself, like you name it. There's not a period in American history that isn't loaded with political violence. The fact that you're saying that means that you personally maybe haven't experienced political violence, and I'm very happy for you, but that is not the story that I or anybody I know has experienced. Have you experienced political violence in your life?
I mean, outside of like right now, I'm trying to think of. Well, yes. Oh yeah. Like I'm trying to think deeper back, but no, just across it, just in general,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that is a hallmark of
Gifford, Scalise. I mean, who else we could? There's a few more we could probably go through. I'm Pelosi's husband. I mean, like,
sure.
if you want to go through,
the
like
legislatures in Minnesota who, you can certainly call Oklahoma City violence. You can certainly call Waco political violence. You can certainly call the attack on the Pulse nightclub in Orlando political violence. Like, where are we not? What are you talking about? We don't do that in this country. This country is founded on political violence. Smallpox blankets, for God's sakes. I mean, what the fuck?
Right.
Okay. So let's go over briefly who Charlie Kirk is and why it matters that he got shot. Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA. It is basically a conservative youth group that exists on college campuses. It masquerades as defending free speech. They mean very specifically a certain kind of free speech. They are extremists. He is an extremist. He takes extreme positions. He has said some of the worst things that you could possibly imagine a public figure saying. He regularly advocated for absolutely no abortions. He famously said if he had a 10-year-old daughter and she got pregnant, that he would make her carry that pregnancy. He does have children. Whether they're going to carry a pregnancy or not, still yet to be determined. They're still too young, but that's apparently where he stood on that issue.
Right.
He said that he didn't want to get on a plane with a black pilot because he worried whether that person was a DEI hire. He said all kinds of things that are like that. He also famously had an opinion on whether gun deaths are acceptable or not. And I don't know if I hope Brian was able to snatch this video from the link that I sent.
Give me a second.
But what we want to do is play this thing before we then talk about kind of what what this means about Charlie Kirk. But in the meantime, I'll read this. It's going to really depend on what we know, later about this, how this all shakes out. So just keep that in mind. We can condemn political violence and also say that Charlie Kirk was not a good person. He was not a good person, and he doesn't deserve to be rehabilitated in death. He stood for violence. He preached violence, and his efforts cost the lives of thousands of people in the United States and around the world, whether that's through anti-trans attacks or removing healthcare from them, or whether it's dissolving USAID, for which he is directly responsible because he helped turn out the vote for the Trump administration. Right. That is his thing. Charlie Kirk was a merchant of death, scavenging millions of dollars from his supporters as he led them in a cult of violence and hatred. That he pissed off someone enough to take action is hardly surprising, and that the guns are so available is of his own making. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and play the video of him saying in so many words that it's okay for people to get shot if it means that the people that he likes get to keep their guns. And be very clear about when he says gun ownership and gun rights and all that stuff, who he means that for. He doesn't mean that for us. He means that for him and the people like him. All right, Brian, you got the video? Maybe.
Okay, stand by. Here we go.
Standing by. I'm standing by the way Greg Abbott stands by.
Oh, no. God.
In a chair.
Every week.
Not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them by having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools. Yes. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society with even armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's dribble. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I very strongly agree with that weird man whose face looks like it was pinched too deeply into his head. Yes, some gun deaths are necessary to protect our God-given freedoms. One of those gun deaths happens to have been him.
Crazy.
Fafo, I guess. I don't know what else to say about that. All these people who are out here talking about, like, Matt Schlapp. What a guy. This guy. He was on Morning Edition today, and Michelle Martin was interviewing him, and he goes, it's really important that we tamp down the political violence in this country, and specifically from the left. And she goes, okay, would you like to condemn the attacks on the Minnesota legislatures or, all of these other right-wing attacks that have happened very recently? And he was like, how dare you? This is why you're getting defunded. My friend is dead, and this is inappropriate for you to ask about those things. And Michelle Martin was like, you were the one that brought it up. Like, I'm just asking you if you want to, like, actually bring it up, or did you not mean the thing that you said? And he, like, started crying and spiraling out. And so they literally just played him off the radio and we're like, okay, see you later, bye. And just cut his mic. And that was it. I don't want to. I'm not out here saying that, like, Charlie Kirk deserved to die. I'm certainly not saying that at all. I'm saying kind of the same thing that I said about all of these other things. If you touch the stove and it's hot, hey, man, you fucking knew that. If you want there to be an armed citizenry, as he said, if you want there to be easy access to guns, if you think that those things protect your rights, there may be some collateral damage, and it might be you. That's principally why a lot of us don't want there to be so many guns, because it might be us.
And I mean, I come on this show a lot of times and I say that the American public is ready for, like, a strongman rule, authoritarianism. But what if there are people who are not? Right? What if there are people who are like, oh, this has gone too far.
And they're the ones who voted. They realized it. And unfortunately, it's too late.
That's exactly right.
It's the sad thing is hearing him saying that, I heard it earlier on another radio show, but hearing it again, it seems like it's like, dude, really? Because again, you're in a bubble. That's the sad part. They figure it's like they'll say all this stuff knowing full well in their dumbass minds that, oh, this will not happen to me. It'll happen to somebody else far, far away, but it won't happen to me because I'll be in my whatever chateau away from you all, enjoying my millions with my 3 billion kids and their kids with multiple partners that are not going to be aborted and all that bullshit that he's been spewing out. What freaking frustrates me is the fact that everyone is this pro-reactive shit. It's like, why you keep reacting to something you could have fully prevented? And again, it's just all it is you want to continue to cycle, and that's what he just kind of did. He's just another dude who fed him some bullshit, and he's just continuing the cycle. And unfortunately, I mean, like you said, I do not put type of this ill will on him, but unfortunately, you kind of deserve this. It's sad, but it's, you know, it happens.
Also, don't discount the money that's involved.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of money here.
There's a huge amount of money that's involved. A huge
vote campaign. He's a prolific fundraiser. He's really been successful at doing a lot of this stuff. Look, we don't know why he got shot. It could be that he slept with the wrong guy's wife. It could be that.
Right.
It could very well be something like that doesn't have anything to do with politics. The governor of Utah, I think, and I think generally Spencer Cox is a fairly responsible, respectable guy.
Right.
I think it was irresponsible for him to say this was politically motivated without actually knowing that.
We don't know that.
Knows that. And
as long as the guy's still out there at large.
Yeah, so then here's
what happens when he comes out when he's like a huge Republican donor. Then what do we say?
I don't know. I mean, look, here's that's the problem.
Right.
There's no information, and so therefore there's a vacuum. The ATF said that they found the gun. They said that they found a bunch of stuff written on the shell casings. Then they retracted that, said that they didn't actually, they can't verify any of that. So the FBI said they had somebody in custody. Then they said that they let that person go. Then they found another person then they let that person go. Kash Patel can't see whether things are coming or going.
Came out, hours after to say that they had captured somebody, right? No.
Well, but also like he just got there to Utah. Here, this is the thing that the FBI is the best at, right? If something huge like this happens, the FBI is really good at investigating and figuring this out. The problem is the special agent in charge of the Salt Lake City office, she got fired because she's a woman and refused to kiss Trump's ass or whatever. A lot of the FBI agents who might be otherwise working this case were reassigned to go through the Epstein files and Sharpie out Donald Trump's name, come to Washington and spread mulch around, go accompany ICE agents in Los Angeles to go round up people at 7-Elevens. The capacity of the FBI to actually figure this out is greatly diminished. This happens in the same week that 3 former high-ranking members of the FBI, including an acting director, are suing Kash Patel and the FBI for firing them illegally.
Wrongful termination,
because they wouldn't take a loyalty oath to the president. So the expertise, the organizational structure, the capacity of the Federal Bureau of Investigations to do a federal investigation are wildly depleted. At the time that they're needed most, they have less capacity. Let's also throw into there the ATF. They lost 20% of their staff. The ATF's critically important if it's going to come down to tracing things by looking. The only piece of information, as far as I know for sure that they've got, is the bullet that's inside of Charlie Kirk's neck.
Right.
The rest of this, they said they had a gun. Maybe they had a gun. It's 30-06. I guess it was a 30-06 based on the distance. That's not rocket science. I'm pretty sure everybody guessed that. We can speculate. This was 150 yards. Got to be a pretty good shot to hit anything at 150 yards.
Yeah.
You got to know your way around that particular type of weapon. Bolt action's probably pretty good for this because you know you can keep track of your shells and it's slow, methodical, heavy. You know, it's very steady. It's why deer hunters like them. But this looks to me like somebody who's military or former military, clearly an operator, knows how to cover their tracks, knows how to get the stuff in position without alerting a lot of suspicion, knows how to get out of there without alerting a lot of suspicion. certainly a very good shot at that kind of a distance. Like that spells operator to me. Doesn't mean that's true. Could be somebody who just spent all their weekends shooting off their tractor. I don't know. And then there's all of this other, there's a lot of room for bullshit in there. And I want to really not we're not going to use our airwaves to talk about it.
No.
But there is this rampant, wild speculation about who done it. And where is a lot of that speculation coming from? It's coming from the White House. You got Trump out here blaming Democrats, blaming the left, whatever that means, for this thing without any evidence whatsoever. They're blaming transgender people without any evidence whatsoever. They're blaming God knows who. It could be accelerationists trying to kick off this war. Right. It could have been a right-wing extremist. It could have been the Boogaloo Boys. It could have been Alex Jones, who's mad that Charlie Kirk still has a job and he doesn't. Who knows? But it's totally irresponsible for people to speculate about it, and it's even more irresponsible for people in authority to be speculating about that.
I want to throw this out there. If you take the John F. Kennedy assassination and put it in today's media situation, media climate, think about that. How Lee Oswald would have gotten either caught or may not have.
He was caught and then he got shot.
Yeah, he was caught. Eventually, mind you, I saw the documentary where it was within minutes, in a sense. I'm over speculating. It was roughly a couple hours, but just think of the fact is like if let's say he wasn't caught, kind of like we're now. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know how he's affiliated. But again, just that little gap of where we throw in that over speculating BS, and we don't know jack. All we knew is like Kirk got shot. Okay, where do we go? And instant filler, huh?
Exactly.
Fox News has 24-hour coverage to
and fill. So does CNN and ABC and CBS.
Right. Yeah, and they want to talk about it.
And the unfortunate thing is like there was, like you said, the Colorado high school that got shot up again, or there was other issues that were going on. This is the sad part about how 24-hour media has gone to.
Absolutely.
And it's because, again, when you do not have proper information from anyone within, let's say, seconds, you're filling in with a whole bunch of bullshit that, again, you're fueling those who are, again, support him. And all it does is anger them even more. It's like, why are we getting different? Oh, it is them. It's them. It is the left. It is that. And especially
AI is added into
throw in AI.
Wait till that's another variable for this.
Yeah, but the real sad part is when you get it from the White House and you get it from the fat fuck in that damn chair, who, again, he doesn't know jack. And it's just like, what do you got to say? Just say, I feel sorry for, say you're that sorry ass video you put out there and call it a day, and just let the supposed people who had actual jobs to do their jobs. But unfortunately, you pretty much fired them because of whatever reasons.
We've seen a responsible way to handle some of these things where there is an information vacuum, where you do see elected officials or whoever saying things like, we're going to let the investigation play out. I mean, even recently, I'm thinking about the New Orleans attack, where the police chief kind of stepped in it a little bit by saying what she said, and then the actual the FBI and everybody else had to come in and be like, we're going to follow the investigation. We'll let you know when we have any real information. It's important for everybody. If you know anything, come forward and let us know. But otherwise, we don't want to speculate on this, and just not talk about it until you've got some real concrete information. Yeah, the public wants to know. It's okay to go out there and have a press conference and say, we haven't got any new information. If you know anything, say something. Here's the tip line. See you later. Right. Like it can be that. You might have to do that. It's unsettling. Nobody likes that response, but it's the right thing to do. Again, like, this is a parenting thing, right? If you've got kids, everybody's been in this situation. Something goes a little sideways. It could be a minor thing, but the kids are like, hey, what's happening? What's happening? And you don't know yet. So you tell them, you just need to be patient. When we get all the information, we'll let you know.
Right.
That's how you handle that as an adult. To be out here speculating or spewing or blaming is totally irresponsible. I want to point out that the day after Kirk got shot, a dozen HBCUs got credible threats and had to lock down. The Naval Academy in Annapolis had to lock down. I don't know how many other things had to lock down just today. I know that elementary schools across this region are practicing their lockdown drills this week. That's even a thing that we have to do. This country is on edge. And it's going to take next to nothing to tip it, because the way that people react to this stuff is crazy. And number one in crazy reaction is the man in charge. These guys want a war. They're going to get a war. Whether they have to shoot their own people to do it or whether they have to blame somebody else, they want this acceleration to take place. And you know, I'm the crazy one with the radios. I'm the crazy one with the holding all the material and trying to be ready for this. But this gets us closer. It's another week where like some crazy shit is happening. It gets us closer.
I mean, it gets us closer. I lean towards that, back to the news cycle, that does this blow over too? Like, I mean, I know no one believes that like there was an assassination attempts on Trump, but those blew over. And I wonder if the cycle then moves so fast that is this even a story in 5 weeks when we're in the middle of a government shutdown?
You might be right.
I don't know if anything. I don't think it moves anybody anymore. Which is very weird to me, and it's like.
Well, it depends on the network. That's the key thing. Because if you think about it, you'll probably Fox News will keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Probably whatever, alt-right will be talking about it, or far right continue to talk about it. But as for, let's say, the sensible news media cycle, yeah, this will be like, okay, this happened. Still no new information. Let's go on to the next story.
Yeah,
that's what's going to
United Healthcare CEO, right? And what's his name? Like that one was huge during a time, right? And when's the last time we talked about that?
Well, there was a story on the radio just this week about somebody wrote a musical about Luigi Mangione.
Right. Yeah, but like we're not talking like I think the same happens here. I have a belief that there's so much information that is being consumed that nothing sticks.
Right.
Nothing sticks. I don't think this sticks either.
Each thing is the next major development, and it knocks the last thing off the charts. I mean, you're right to think about that.
I felt like that since Ukraine, like since or even since Afghanistan.
You called that correctly every time. I'm not saying this sticks. I'm saying that for as far as throwing gas on the fire, it is that, and it's not good.
The only way it does is that, like, and this sounds crazy, but like if there's anything that's coordinated across multiple like states, like that's because then you tap in on fear, and I think I don't know if people are afraid yet. Like, this has happened. I don't know if people are afraid to the point where like, oh, we're gonna like whatever.
If Group A is able to convince themselves that Group B has perpetrated the thing, and they start going at it across multiple locations with maybe individuals who affiliate with these groups individually without any central direction. Let's say the Proud Boys decide that the trans activists did this, and the trans activists decided that the Proud Boys did, and they start picking at each other and taking shots, literal shots at each other, across 5 or 6 different locations. We do have a real problem on our hands.
I think then you do. I don't know if the American people have the stomach for that. Like they like revolution in theory. I don't think outside of the theory and like them inserting themselves into their own this drama that they kind of like people want to be like the main characters and like the drama of like whatever the country is, and I find that to be a little disturbing. But like when it comes down to reality, I just don't know if anybody really like. I don't think anybody's really like about it like that. To be more succinct, I don't know. I don't think the American people are really. I think what they want to do is go and buy stuff, and I think they want to go and eat out, and I think they want to go and like go on vacations with their families. I think that's still what Americans want to do, and I don't think there's enough Americans who are like revolution and like we're here.
No,
I don't believe
it comes to that, but I don't think it needs to be very many. I think you need small groups, 10 or 15 at a time, looking for trouble, causing problems. And our infrastructure is so vulnerable. Our institutions are so vulnerable. The overall understanding of government and civics is so lacking that it is so easy to
let's correct the word. It's not lacking. It is non-existent.
It's non-existent, and it's an intentional thing. It's been intentionally not taught to a whole several generations because they don't want us to understand how governance works, because then it's easier to take advantage and keep class warfare from breaking out. But at some point or another, I'm not saying the Charlie Kirk assassination, if it is that, is the catalyst for anything. It's probably not. We'll probably move on from this. But we've got a stagflation crisis on our hands currently. And I know that this show loves to pretend that we're economists, but that is a very serious problem. The jobs market is cratering around us. Unemployment's ticking up. First-time claims are ticking up. We're seeing inflation is growing. There's going to be a rate cut despite that because the job thing is more pressing than the inflation. What do we do about that? It's artificial inflation. It may not be correctable in the way that regular inflation can be corrected by like the markets rebalancing and restabilizing. We may not be able to correct this because of the damage in the relationships of the trading that's done in the world. The middle class is being squeezed by every possible side you can imagine, whether it's in terms of their economic mobility, whether it's in terms of housing prices, whether it's in terms of lack of jobs, whether it's in terms of cost of living. All of these things are squeezing. The access to power, the access to education, all of these things creates a pressure.
Yeah.
And when there is that pressure, it is easy for demagogues, cults, insert problem group here, to grab hold. And because of the ubiquity of guns, the ease of communication, the mass communication of the internet, the videos, the AI, pick your thing, it's a force multiplier for mayhem. And it doesn't take a whole state acting out. It now takes 10 to 15 people. If Tim McVeigh had the internet and video the way that there is now on phones, the Oklahoma City bombing would have been the first of dozens, if not more, because he would have been able to connect with more people who had similar fears and similar mindsets, and they would have been able to coordinate and make an attack that the authorities weren't ready for.
I mean, I don't argue that all of this ends in violence. I feel like I've mentioned that before. I feel like, yes, this, not that I'm wishing that, but yeah, obviously this ends in some sort of violence, but it's what is the day after? What does that look like? And what choices do we make as Americans?
I'm not ready to even worry to think about that, to be honest, because here's the other problem. It's who's in charge at the time that the violence takes place and what is the reaction. If the violence happens and the reaction is an absolute fascist crackdown, day after doesn't matter. We're not going to make it to the day after. And if it's some sort of major fascist crackdown or a breakdown or some sort of vastly more chaotic situation than what we have now, I'm not worried about what's the next version of government that we set up in the United States. I'm worried about how am I going to eat, and then I'm going to have to be barbecuing my neighbor or whatever Alex Jones was on about. Like, it is going to be
flat.
Wow. Yes. It's and then day after doesn't matter. It's academic.
I as a consumer society, it's hard to think, and not saying it can't get there. It's just, it's built. All of this is built on the consumer going outside and buying stuff. And if
I
you get
understand
to and if you and I think
it's like the corporate deep state won't allow this to happen.
right. That's where I'm at with. I've always thought that. I've always thought the corporate deep state, the bankers in China, would be like, hold on, all right, wait.
But what's their mechanism? That's the thing. It's like, how do they tamp it down? How do they stop it? You've got these people who believe in these things like they're waiting for JFK Jr. to show up in Dallas. What commerce? How does Walmart control that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question.
All these witches and warlocks.
So we're almost that season.
Maybe. Yeah, you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna say it. All right, let's do some quick rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's gone on in the news. We can skip the sound effect. Just try to get out of here on time. All right, so the South Koreans were working illegally in Georgia, despite the fact that the Georgians clearly invited them there and they had all these economic deals.
There's a big old Hyundai plant.
There's a giant Hyundai plant, shocking, full of Koreans. And these were all mostly technical experts, I think, that were there training up the Americans who would ultimately end up taking over for them when they went back home. So that's pretty much just how foreign investment works. I don't know why anybody doesn't know that. If the Americans go build a factory in some country, some contingent of American management hangs around until they can get the locals up to speed.
Right.
And then they go home or they go on to the next thing. Why wouldn't it work the other way? And then Trump turned around and he's like, yeah, well, actually, we do want them to stay and train our people. So maybe bring them back or something like that.
Just a few.
These guys are so out of their league when it comes to managing an economy or an immigration system or whatever. It's all just so self-serving and stupid.
Yeah. I thought you elect this guy because he knows how to run a business. We want to run America like a business.
Right.
Worst business.
Fire all your talent and scare off all of your potential other talent. Crazy. Never seen a business run by firing all the people that know how to run the business.
Right.
All right, let's go to Nepal real quick.
Speaking of fire.
Ooh. Aces for that one. All right, Nepal is a country sandwiched between India and China in the mountains there, in the Himalaya mountains. It's pretty high up in the air. Their capital is a place called Kathmandu, which is a cool thing to say. The population is huge. You don't know how many people live in Nepal, but it's a lot more than you think. And also, they're very poor, like really, 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 really poor. So poor that they love to send their people to do UN peacekeeper jobs because they get paid for them. Yeah. Also, the food from Nepal is great. I happen to know several people, Nepalese people, and I love getting invited to their house because their food is fantastic. And there's a few restaurants around here, so I highly recommend you go and eat their food. However, the country hit a bit of a rough spot, you could say. Basically, the elites in the country, the prime minister and all of the sort of governing elites, they have a lot of money and they're living a rich life. Their kids are posting on Instagram pictures of themselves with Louis Vuitton Christmas trees. And the rest of the country is like, yo, we're eating dirt. Fuck that nonsense. And they're like, give us some stuff. And the rich people were like, no. And so they're like, have you seen Les Mis? And they go, no. And they go, great, let's do it. And then they Les Mis'd them. So they kicked out all these people and they burned everything to the ground. All of the capitol's on fire. They burned the parliament. They burned the prime ministers, everything. It was really very cinematic, right? So the army showed up and the army was like, all right, everybody calm down. And for the most part, everybody calmed down. And the army was like, all right, who's in charge of this operation so we can figure out how to put them in charge of running the country so we can go back to doing whatever the fuck it is we do where we don't have to run this country. And the protesters like, we haven't got a leader. They go, what do you mean you haven't got a leader? They go, We never got around to that. We're just still like, burning things. And they're like, well, don't burn anything anymore. And who can we talk to? And they go, the mayor. And they go, the mayor? And he goes, yeah, he used to be a rapper. Now he's a mayor. And they're like, that doesn't sound like a good person to talk to. And they're like, oh, no, he's fine. You should hear his songs. So then they talk to the mayor, and that's where we're at now. There's a whole country with nobody in charge, which is fine. If you look a little south of there, here's our handy dandy globe again, right? We're having this is like the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego version of ChipChat. Here's Nepal, right? It's a little green one there. All right. Look a little bit south of there, and you get, or east too, you get this little tiny purple guy, Bangladesh, which is full of way more people than you'd think for such a tiny country. They also had a similar situation. They ran their prime minister out. She fled to India. And the students who ran the protest, they got a Nobel laureate economist to run the show nominally. But they basically appointed themselves like civil society. So one of them was like, hey, I'm going to go pick up trash. Anybody want to help me? And like a bunch of them went to go help. And they're like, hey, this traffic looks pretty bad. And then one of them's like, I'll go direct traffic. And they just appointed themselves crossing guards and stood in the middle of the street and started like directing traffic. And they basically still, a year later, after their coup, are kind of like running the show with no leader. They're just kind of like making stuff up as they go. It's not great, not stable, not how you want countries with several 100 million people in them to run. Right next to two big economic powers with 1 billion people.
Exactly. It just doesn't.
There's no way that goes bad. What refugee crisis?
What could happen?
What could happen? So, stay tuned on that. There's a Bob Seger song about going to Kathmandu. Maybe we'll listen to that later. And then in the most ChipChat story of the week, we did briefly talk about how the falling jobs numbers are becoming a bit of a problem. But I'm going to assume because she's a Fed governor, Tez's hero, Lisa Cook. Do you have like Fed governor trading cards or something? Do you have
it's like Lisa Cook with Raphael Bostic. Who's my man?
Austin Goolsbee.
Austin Goolsbee. That's one up there.
You know why people tune into the show? It's because we have favorite Fed governors.
That's sick. That is sick. And soon I'll have none.
Yeah. So, all right. So, what's going on with Dr. Cook?
Well, as I understand it, right? Didn't appeal judge was it say she could stay in her role?
Yeah.
She was fired, and she shouldn't have been, or not. I don't even know if he can fire her, to be honest.
Nobody really knows. But she's currently at her job and is going to be able to vote on the rate adjustment if there is going to be one coming in October.
There's going to be one.
Yeah, there is going to be one. The markets have already priced that in and did a whole bunch of rising today as a result. So basically the Fed exists outside of the executive branch. They're an independent thing. They were specifically set up by Congress to be independent so that presidents can't use the Fed to cheat at the economy, essentially. Right. And Trump doesn't care about that. So he's like, no, I'm going to fire her because she's a black woman. And they're like, whoa. And he goes, no, I mean mortgage fraud. And then they're like, are you sure you want to be the one to be like calling people out for mortgage fraud? And he's like, what? I was convicted of business fraud. That's different. And they go, no, it's not. That's the same thing.
Right. You know how I know she does fraud? Because I do fraud.
Nobody frauds like me. I'm the best at fraud. This guy came up to me, big guy, tall guy, strong guy. He had tears in his eyes. He said, sir, I commit a lot of fraud. You do the best fraud. All the best fraud.
Many people are saying it.
Many people are saying, yeah. So she's still got her job, kind of. I don't know. Here's a funny thing, though. The guy who is doing all the mortgage fraud prosecuting, he's the head of the federal housing something.
Yeah,
his name is Pulte. And he and Scott Bessent had a good time over the weekend. They were both invited to the new like Trump club in Georgetown, in the old Georgetown Park Mall.
Oh yes, yeah.
And they got in a fist fight, which is great. Yeah, Besant like walks up to him. He goes, "I hear you talking shit about me to the boss." And Pulte goes, "So what if I am?" He goes, "I'm gonna punch you in your fucking face." That's a direct quote. And then they were like, no, they tried to like break it up. And the owner was like, "Why don't we go outside?" And Besant goes, "Why? So I can whoop his ass?" Like it got into a whole thing. And yeah, standard behavior for cabinet officials. Just look that one up in your spare time. Like, why is Scott fighting with Pulte?
This is moved from the Trump Hotel that is no longer there to
this club in the Georgetown Park Mall.
Crazy. They used to be a real mall.
Out there
I was gonna say that's a real mall.
It was a real mall.
It's a real mall.
A mall in Georgetown.
It's a real mall with like a water fountain in the middle of it.
In the middle of it, in a food court. It was a cool mall.
It's hard to explain that to people.
I liked it.
Wasn't a bad mall.
And when I was, on the crew team, we were rowing out of Thompson's.
Yeah.
It was right there. So we could finish rowing and then head up to the mall and hang out because it was the 90s and that's what we did because that was how kids behaved. Never mind. Okay. Fucking kids on their metro. All right. Whew. Well, we did it. We got to the end of the show. We're only a little over.
Only 8 minutes.
We want to say thank you to all the real journalists who are out there covering these stories so we can compile them and talk about them here. Thanks. Thanks to our radio partners, RIP Radio. We're back on. So back with the family there. Spotify, YouTube, Google, Stitcher, AOL, all those guys. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, maybe. Don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as a Turning Points live event. All right, where can everybody get you on the socials there, Tez? No?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to collect myself. Just 1 second. Let me collect myself. If you're looking for me, you can find me Easy Cortez on Blue Sky, making sure that people stay safe.
Fantastic. All right, when you're not drinking raw milk, you can find me on and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. The RR is for RIP Radio if you want to go back to that. And you can find me, or you can find the show on Facebook or Instagram at RIP ChipChat. And you can, of course, find me on the Blue Sky at Chef Chip, my old handle, and from the Twitters. And, all over the place. You can listen to us on a rebroadcast on Saturday, I believe. So, check that out. Happy birthday to our Trump, the good one. He's celebrating for a couple of weeks. So hopefully he's sober enough to hear this, but definitely not.
No,
it's fine. He deserves it. Let him have some time. All right, and we'll be back next week. I think next week we've got a guest.
Okay.
I believe we're going to be talking about Emmys with Charlie.
Oh, good. That means I have a week off. No.
Not quite. But, and the VMAs just happened, so I'm sure we'll ask him about that, too. So there'll be all kinds of things to talk about there that are maybe a little lighter. So hopefully that'll be better for him.
We'll see. Again, don't tempt the news cycle.
I hate that that's your quote. All right. I'm Chip. That's Tez. Brian somewhere in the background. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Thank everybody.
Please.
We get famous, we can give a shout out to Brian. To get us out on time is what he be trying. The show is like a custom feathered avian that knows words. How can we stay late when our guest is Illy Bird? In conclusion, the message is to go out and serve folks, whether that's through art, music, or if you just tell jokes. Seek to medicate your ears, hope you eradicate your fears. Thanks for sticking with us through all these years.